It's been almost 2 years since Nintendo Switch Sports released, and well, normally, this is the part where I'd say some witty intro like has taken the world by storm. But it really didn't. Like, sure, it was interesting, and I remember kind of being excited at the time, but it wasn't really what I wanted. It felt like a downgrade from Wii Sports Resort, the game that I wanted ported at the time, and that Nintendo had kind of taken the magic out of the sports franchise. And just overall, what they had given us was a major downgrade over Wii Sports Resort. But did they? And is it? After many, many hours and many videos on this game, I feel qualified to answer the question, is Nintendo Switch Sports worth $65 or $50 digitally? Alright, let's talk about the gameplay loop. Now, this part of the review is gonna be a little bit weird and unlike my previous reviews, because there's actually 7 games to talk about. Tennis, badminton, soccer, shambara, golf, bowling, and volleyball. I'll begin with tennis first, since it's very much a copy and paste of the tennis found in Wii Sports. You swing your Joy-Con to control the front and back sports mates, even though they're should be called Wii's, but that's a thing for a different video, until you win. The opposing team does the same, and the gameplay loop repeats itself until such time as the round is over. That's it. There's no evolution of gameplay from Wii Sports that I can see, with the possible exception of the AIs that I'll talk about a bit later. Nintendo didn't take the opportunity to have one-to-one motion controls the way that Wii Sports did, and we know that's possible on the Switch because Skyward Sword HD uses them, so why wasn't it possible here? I think it would have been really cool to have something like that to maybe give better feedback to the player. And it's not even because of a lack of a sensor bar, because Skyward Sword HD lets you recenter the controls with the press of a button. And in my experience with the game, it did alright without a sensor bar. Now, I should make it clear that in a vacuum, there is nothing wrong with the way that tennis plays. It's responsive, you know what to expect, your grandma could handle it. However, in the context of the earlier sports titles, it feels very lackluster to me. There's no evolution to this game mode. Like, sure, the textures of the court change with seasons, I think, and that's cool and all, but is that it? Like, that's all Nintendo could do here? To me, tennis feels like they needed a 6th game before release, and they kind of emergency copied and pasted from Wii Sports. Either that, or they needed a base for badminton and just kind of kept it in the game. Speaking of badminton, this is, again, very much what you'd expect. It's like tennis, but with a birdie, and the rules of badminton applied. And I commend Nintendo for trying here. And I think had tennis not been in the game, I'd be a lot more excited about badminton, but tennis is. And I don't think we need both tennis and badminton. To me, they play too similarly, and that's kind of a shame. It's like the game was developed in a major time crunch, and the devs just repurposed as many things as they could. Like, I don't really have much more to say on badminton. That's it. Where things do get interesting, however, is soccer. There's a game mode where you can play rounds against the CPU, and a game mode where you can participate in kind of like a shootout against the CPU, trying to get goals in the net. The first game mode, you can play with a Joy-Con to move around and shoot with a swing, and it does feel like you're playing soccer to me, which is cool. And like, it's a cool experience, and I did that for both my videos on soccer. Mostly. But the second game mode, however, does just require the leg strap to just play in general. And the second game mode, again, is fine, and it's fun enough, but it's locked behind what is essentially a physical paywall if you bought the game digitally. And while the leg strap was, and I believe is still sold separately, there shouldn't be an extra charge to experience content present in the base game. I was mad at it in 2021 with Skyward Sword HD, and I'm mad with it here. I think it's an utterly absurd practice, and it's shameful Nintendo did it. Now, I did buy the game physically, so it did come with a leg strap, but digital buyers should be able to experience the same content physical buyers can. Overall, both modes are fun, but the paywall leaves a bad taste in my mouth. Next up is Shambara, and once again, we've got an iteration here, this time of sword fighting from Wii Sports Resort. This time you can choose 3 different swords to fight with, and a new supercharged attack is added to one of them, so once the charge is built up, you can release it. One sword mode is exactly what we had in Wii Sports Resort and has the most powerful strike. The next sword has that aforementioned special charge attack you can build up by blocking attacks. And finally, you've got 2 swords with a spin attack. However, in my playthrough, I didn't notice an appreciable power difference between the sword types. And I think the 2 swords is probably the best overall because of the spin attack and there's 2 swords. So you can use 1 Joy-Con for each sword, and that's fun. In this game mode, there's nothing wrong with it being iterative. And I think the charm of the optional sword fight mode is preserved in its entirety and enhanced by the extra options that Nintendo Switch Sports provides. After that, we have golf. And this was the 7th sport that was added in an update, and again, it's just a port of golf from Wii Sports Resort. No extra holes added, no nothing, just good old regular golf. It's as fun as it ever was, but I'm a little bit sad they didn't add something new for it. Maybe give the 9 holes special. Just put that as its own special 9 holes. Something like that. And golf is probably my favorite game mode on Switch Sports. So while on the one hand, I'm very happy they didn't fix something that didn't need to be fixed, I would have liked to see maybe something a little extra added to it, just in terms of extra holes or something. Our second to last sport is bowling. And once again, it's good old Wii Sports Bowling that got ported over. And if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And I think Nintendo took it to heart. Even spin control's back, and it's more or less the same. And there's nothing wrong with that. Nintendo kind of perfected bowling in 2006, so why change it? The only big change I'm going to mention here is we can all bowl at once now, rather than taking turns. But I also can't throw the ball backwards and scare me's anymore, which is kind of sad, since that was hilarious. I do think as well that the strikes are probably easier to hit than they were before. I'm not sure though if that's because something in the game has changed, or the Joy-Cons more accurate, or what's going on, maybe it's a combination, but I definitely think it's easier.
Lastly, we've got volleyball. It plays very similarly to a volleyball game in real life, which I thought was pretty cool. I found some issues in my playthroughs in terms of timing the ball, and when to spike it, and when to send it. But I think that's mostly down to me being bad, rather than any innate issue with the game. At most, there might be increased input delay, but I also didn't notice that, and I think it's just down to me. Overall, I thought the sport was really cool, and one of the more unique ones in Switch Sports.
As for the AI, I think is an improvement on Wii Sports Resort. There's 3 levels this time, and while the first 2 are easy enough to beat, the 3rd level has a huge difficulty spike that takes a lot of effort to overcome. It's so bad that in the soccer shootout, you have to depend on them missing their shots to take a win. And sometimes they will just make them all, and you have no way to win without going into the extra shots. I do like the challenge, and find it to be very much a welcome addition, though, which is nice. Anyway, now that we've kind of talked about the gameplay loop of all 7 games, this is normally the part where I'd hem and haw, give a quick rationale, and then the rubric and the rating would pop up on the screen. However, I find myself asking, what is the rubric actually asking me to evaluate? I've talked a lot about missed opportunities here, but is the game fun? The answer to that question to me is yes. Yes, it is. As much as I see the missed opportunities, the game is fun and I don't regret a single minute I spent on it. There's also no glitches in the game that I can find, so there's that. Even the online servers I think are pretty good. The music's a bop too, and in a sports game, I'm not as worried about the music, but it does add atmosphere, which is nice. The games do plays very similarly to their real life experiences for me as well. And I think in a sports game, that's really all you can ask. Sure, I'd like more variety, and that will be talked about later when we get to price. But here, it's done everything I'd expect it to do. Maybe some sports aren't my cup of tea, but they play so close to their real life counterparts that I also don't enjoy. So if I marked them down here, I'd have to ask myself, is this deserved, or am I marking it down because I don't enjoy the relevant sports? In these types of situations, I try very hard to give games the benefit of the doubt. I think the sports I enjoy, I do find very fun. And I'd probably find the other sports very fun too if I liked them in real life. Therefore, I award Nintendo Switch Sports a 5 out of 5 on Gameplay Loop. It's important for me to recognize and check my biases wherever possible, and although some of the sports here aren't ones I enjoy, the game's rating shouldn't suffer because of that. With that out of the way, let's move on to graphics and performance. In terms of graphics and performance, there's not really much to say. The game runs at a locked 1080p 60 in my experience, and that's exactly what I'd expect. There's zero reason for it to be any less, so it's good it's achieved it. The graphics themselves look good enough too. They're nothing particularly exciting, but they get the job done, that's what counts. Again, they're good. They're not great, but they're good. And once again, I'm now ready to give a rating, as performance is not only what I'd expect, but quite high for the Nintendo Switch, and the graphics are, well, good. I'm awarding a score of 4 on net, and giving 5 for the performance and 3 for the graphics, so it averages out to a 4. Finally, it's time to talk about price. You may have noticed to this point that the review is shorter than the previous reviews I've done, and that's for a reason. There just isn't a lot to talk about with Switch Sports. The content just doesn't seem there for me. Now, I know there's things content-wise I haven't talked about yet, like cosmetics for your sports mates, titles you can gain through playing online, and that's cool. But there should be a way to unlock these offline, and there just doesn't seem to be outside of a few cosmetic items in my experience. And I think it's great that they added those, but it doesn't add anything to the experience for me. Just overall, it seems like Nintendo did something very un-Nintendo. They phoned it in. And when the game first came out, before the idea of this channel ever came into my mind, I said I would have preferred a port of Wii Sports Resort to this game. And after almost 2 years, I still think that. Wii Sports Resort just has more content, overall more personality. It doesn't help this game's case, Nintendo Switch Sports' case either, that the game is priced at $50 Canadian digitally and $65 for a physical copy that includes the leg strap. And for that price, the game just isn't worth it. It's a shame too, since by all rights, it should be. And yet, it's just not. Funnily enough, I probably would pay $50 for a port of Wii Sports Resort. $65 would be a harder sell, but again, I still might do it. But that's also because I love Wii Sports Resort a lot. So to me, it would be worth it. Now, once again, we arrive at the scoring. I wouldn't recommend you buy this game for any more than $30 or 50% off Canadian physically, and probably around the same digitally. And if you can find it for that, that's great. But otherwise, I'd hold off and acquire a copy of Wii Sports Resort to either play on your Wii or emulate through Dolphin. I therefore awarded a score of 1 point. The quality is there, but there's just not enough quantity for me to give it any more points. So we have our answer. Nintendo Switch Sports isn't worth $65. It's not even worth $50. And until you can find it for much less, you should play Wii Sports Resort in some form instead. And yet, I don't regret my purchase. In fact, I did buy the game at full price, and I don't really regret it. I've gotten a lot of hours out of it. I've made a lot of videos on it. I consider Nintendo Switch Sports to be a mainstay of this channel, along with Mario Kart, Minecraft, and Smash. And 15 out of 20 just isn't a bad score by any means. In fact, I think it's pretty similar to what I gave Starfield. it just could have been so much more. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. If you did enjoy, please like, subscribe, and join the Discord, which I'll leave a link to in the description, to help me make it a place where you can all hang out and talk gaming. I also just wanted to thank you all for the recent support my videos are getting. It does mean the world to me, and I'll keep making high quality content for a long time to come. Also, if you have any other review ideas in the comments, let me know, or if you agree or disagree with me on something, let me know. I really do enjoy hearing your perspectives on these reviews, since I know my perspective is not the only unique one or necessarily the right perspective. Until then, thanks for watching once again, and I'll see y'all in the next one. Goodbye.